I think it's time for a do-over. Hello and welcome to this year's patron-voted video. Whew. I almost thought I was gonna miss a time frame, but here we are. This time around, the Sauce Lords gave us a selection of potential videos and the patrons voted for Pathologic, which I intentionally kept the name Pathologic open-ended for reasons that we'll get into towards the end of this video. So by the command of the patrons that make this possible, I reinstalled Artemy B's Hunt for the Snackies Simulator 2019 and embraced pain. The endless, omnipresent pain. Alright, that might be a little much, but that's also something you might consider if you're unfamiliar with the Pathologic series, but you have heard about it without playing it. Well, Pathologic 2 is we insist it is not a remake of a game called Pathologic, created by one Icepick Lodge way back in 2005. Much like the everything in the game, it's complicated and best to explain things as we go. Pathologic 2 is a survival torment simulator that all the cool channels will say is quote-unquote a game that, caps locks engaged, hates you. The reality of the situation is it is a game with intense resource management, and also it doesn't let you just circle strafe or save scum your problems away. It is a challenging survival story where the people that want to kill you are the least of your problems, because dehydration's gonna get you before the plague does. It's a game where every bullet counts if you can even find a means or even bother to find a means to use them, and more importantly, every meter you run instead of walk, every minute you stay up past your bedtime, past your point of exhaustion, and every second you are out in infected air will count. You will die a lot if you don't know what you're doing. There will be permanent punishments for deaths, and while you can save scum, your deaths are bound to a save slot, so they come with you on every reload. Icepick Lodge successfully ran a Kickstarter for the funds they needed to develop Pathologic 2 back in the early 2010s, and in 2019, TinyBuild published Pathologic 2. Press keys went out, and among the many, yours truly received one back in the day. And then the great filtering began. Almost everyone got filtered. I got filtered. Fun fact, it's easy to see if any of your Steam friends got filtered by Pathologic 2 by checking their playtime. And if it's between 6 and 8 hours, that means they didn't even make it into the first day of the proper Outbreak. By the way, here's a convenient little timestamp for the people who got that far and want to see what happens after the spooky dust fills the air. This game filtered the boomer shooter players, the survival horror players, the M-simmers, and basically everyone who was not Mandalore Gaming, Solmatol, or H-Bomber guy was brought to their knees. Sure, the people who backed the Kickstarter were probably fine because they knew what they were getting into, but for the rest of us who only knew about the game thanks to either Mandy's or maybe Solmatol's videos, good input. Yeah, you also got filtered by Pathologic 2. You were you were like 4. Alright, where were we? Oh yeah, people getting filtered. It was so bad that Icepick Lodge sighed and then pushed out a patch that created a fine-tunable difficulty system for those of us that were getting spanked so badly we weren't sure which way was forward anymore. We will not be using that system today. We are doing the fully intended difficulty, or Imago as the game calls it. And we are only reloading saves when absolutely necessary. And I'm going to take the time to define absolutely necessary as either we die and are forced to reload as the game intends, or we hit a soft lock and cannot progress. And to be a further stickler for the rules, soft lock isn't, oh no, I made a series of bad choices and won't be able to get the ending I want. It's, crap, I tried to interact with someone on the exact same frame that a prompt to feed the Earth's roots came up, and now I can't interact with anything or anyone and need to close the game out and restart it. Lucky for me, this is my third rodeo with this game, as after I had to turn the sliders of shame on in my first go-round back in 2019, I livestreamed myself going to the end on Imago a couple years back. I know how to get to the end and what I need to do, but Pathologic 2 is a game with so much going on, with the intention that it's just not possible to complete every task, and you can't really commit the whole game to memory. Still, having an idea of what you need to do puts you leagues ahead of any poor soul who downloaded this on Steam sale because they heard it was freaky. One last thing before we go. I don't know if you can tell immediately by this intro section, but there is a lot to explain about not only the mechanics of this game, but the world in which it takes place. I believe the term is secondary world, like where there's as little from the real world as possible paralleled with this game. So there's a lot of cultural dynamics and other just world building things that will need to be explained as we go if anything's going to make sense. As I've got a few playthroughs under my belt and all the wiki reading, trial and error, and hard lessons learned from those playthroughs, I'm gonna try and explain things as we go, but be warned, it's easy to get lost and it will be a lot, especially at the beginning. There's a reason why most videos about anything to do with the Pathologic series enter the triple digits in runtime. We've gotten almost everything out of the way, but before we get into it, there's one last thing we have to do. It's time to check in on ourselves. Just take a moment right about now to think about something nice that happened to you today, or maybe earlier this week if it's still pretty early in the day as you watch this. It's real easy to get distracted by the doom scroll and end up convinced that everything is bad, so taking the time to focus on good things is especially important. It doesn't have to be something big or even an especially meaningful thing. All it needs to be is just a nice thing that happened. Alright, it's time for Dr. Burakh to make some house calls. Welcome to day 11? Okay, so we're doing a flash forward. I find myself in the theater where Dr. Dankovsky and the orderlies have all but given up, but I still want to try and save this town. Let's step outside and... Oh boy. This is the bad ending. It's quite the dramatic scene as the military is here and going quite literally scorched earth against this plague that we failed to contain. Now, I'm just going to get this out of the way now. There's a lot of music that really helps set the stage and the dramatic tension for events in Pathologic 2. However, we're not going to be hearing any of it because, unfortunately, it will get this video claimed. I found this out the hard way with the stream I previously mentioned, as all the VODs got claimed even though they were set to private. I'm sorry guys, that's just the reality of the situation. Anything that is not explicitly royalty-free or Creative Commons has a non-zero chance of getting a copyright claim, even stuff that's not normally enforced like video game music. Now where were we? Right. Stepping over a few dozen bodies, we find ourselves in the cathedral. No matter which authority figure we talk to, no one cares that we have a cure because the town is too far gone. It sounds like everyone's going to get to be a part of the big barbecue. There's one guy who's willing to hear us out though. He's not really in charge of anything. He's the director of the local theater. Actually, come to think of it, I think this guy might be God or something. At the very least, he's an entity not unlike G-Man from Half-Life or Vector Prime. The director is willing to give us a do-over in the purest sense. Mark Immortel and all of his stage direction power sends us back to day 0. The next thing we know, we're on a train to the steppe after receiving a letter from our father. It's not like nothing happened though. We know that from the last time how everything went down. Admittedly, we didn't have a very good attempt, but at least we now know what not to do, I think. We basically have a fresh take on preventing the plague as best we can. The only issue here is that things that were meant to happen are still going to happen. What really changes here is our reaction to everything. It's never shown exactly what our player character, Artemy Burakh, also known as the Haruspex, did during his botched attempt that we see the end of, but I wouldn't be surprised if it involved a whole lot of time wasting. You know, this do-over is oddly fitting. Not only is this Artemy Burakh's do-over at the step, but it's mine too. You see, I already made a video on Pathologic 2 way back in the day like we were talking about in the intro. It was part of the original Halloween in July back in 2019, and the video sucked. It was a wild time for me. I got recognized as YouTube's gaming creator on the rise. I was getting more comfortable with my writing and editing style and trying out new video formats on YouTube. And also, I had just graduated earlier in the spring and was excited to start working in my field of choice. One of those things didn't go as planned though, and here we are now. Well, I had gotten a key through a service called Keymailer that gave me a little bit of a run-up time to get through the game. Pathologic 2 was just slapping me silly at every turn, and in order to get the video out in a reasonable time frame, I shamefully turned on wuss mode to get more footage. I never finished that run because it just felt wrong now that everything was easy. Here we are 5 years into the future, and I think I've earned that do-over. Now for the Haruspexes. A lurch in the train knocks over a coffin, and holy shit, it's a stowaway. Well, we're also stowaways, but we claim this boxcar first. This guy's friendly enough, but won't really tell us all that much about why he's coming to the town in such a hurry. He's also chill enough not to wake us from our ominous dreams. Artemy's dreams range from warnings about the future to the in-game tutorial, which neglects to tell you certain things like how if you drop something you can hold left control to highlight a bag on the ground just like you were highlighting a person that you can talk to. Very handy for herbs you drop in the middle of the step. We learn how to punch a guy in the face and trade hearts with him. It's time to get off this train. The very second we get off the train, we are jumped by 3 dudes. Lucky for us, this takes place in a cutscene because this is most likely the only time anyone's ever taken on 3 thugs at once in Pathologic 2 and lived. Combat is punishing in this game. A single rando catching you at a bad time is an easy death sentence, and unless you're strapped, any more than 1 dude at a time, even when you are prepared, is a guaranteed death sentence. I think this little bit here is to establish that our player character, Artemy Burakh, is a shit brick house who is more than capable of killing with his bare hands. This ends up being a problem though, as despite coming here after receiving a letter from our father, we are being accused of murdering the man. There is a reputation system in this game, in which every borough in this town has an opinion of you based on your actions within. We can literally see the speed at which the rumors of our acts are spreading, as our town-wide reputation is in freefall. People go from avoiding us on the street to refusing to talk to us and hiding when we approach their doors, to straight up attacking us on sight when we walk down the street. We are completely unarmed at the moment and cannot handle the angry mob. The few places in town that'll still let us in are some of the less than reputable stores, and lucky for us, this game has it where when you enter a building, it will instantly break aggression from anyone that might be coming after you. We spend a lot of time hiding out in pharmacies and carefully walking on the fringes of town to avoid being noticed by anyone. We have to find a way to do something about this. Sometimes Providence is funny like that though, because someone who doesn't take stock in all these wild accusations is the kind of person that would probably look the other way if he believed them anyway. Or perhaps he sees them as proof that we're the man for the job he needs done. In the warehouse district is where people who do not want to be seen by the authorities hang out, and bad grief is king. And we happen to go back. Bad Grief's business is anything that the other 3 powers in the town frown upon, and he needs the work of a surgeon. It turns out that one of his guys is in a bad way at someone's house. We're fresh out of scalpels though, and hey, it's one of those guys from my dreams. Can everyone else see this guy? He's there, right? Whatever, I'm sure people are just used to these guys by now. For those uninitiated, these are the tragedians, the actors from the local theater. They've been tasked by the director to go out in town and show their performances to the masses on the public stage. These are not only basic tips about the game, but this is also a real practice called guerrilla theater. I had a teacher in high school that made me do guerrilla theater, and it's essentially a theater kid humiliation ritual. Don't force teenagers to do guerrilla theater, it's not cool. Back to Bad Grief's task though. We gotta find some guy that's in someone else's house and fix him up. This is a tutorial for surgery where you learn that the tier and condition of your surgical implement determines your chance of getting a fresh, juicy human organ. He's got a lockpick in his guts, which we take out. I'm not allowed to take organs from this guy because Bad Grief is expecting him back, so finders keepers on this lockpick. It's good for stabbing things and getting into doors you're not allowed in. It looks like the guy's gonna make it. Another tragedian is in the house with us and has an important lesson: the virtues of stealing everything you can carry from an unintended domicile. That sounds like a great idea, Mr. Community Theater Guy. Let's steal everything. Oh yeah, the local government would like to talk to me about the murders, but I don't really want to talk to them right about now. Bad Grief's happy that we did our little errand for him, and honestly surprised the guy isn't dead. He knows we're cool now, so he'll sell us the good stuff. Also, a guy from the steppe named Var shows up and has an interesting proposition for me. He'll pay cold hard cash for any organs I bring him. This could be a very lucrative arrangement in the coming days. The warehouses are an okay place for me to hang out right now, as not only am I good with Bad Grief, but the local children have organized into a faction called the Soul and a Halves, expats from that big funky building on the horizon that see themselves as bonded to their partner animals. I convinced them that murder is something for grown-ups only, and I somewhat safely resolved all their disputes with the other kids in town. The rest of the town is still a big problem for me. People are going and trying to kill me on sight, and the hysteria of the town is reaching a boiling point. I'm locked out of my father's house because apparently it's a crime scene, and it would have been nice to have a place to lay low right about now. There's also an angry mob outside of my father's house that think I'm the murderer. Oh, there's this kid separate from them next to my house that seems to have known my dad, called Sticky. He seems like an okay enough kid, but the standard's pretty low right now because these people who literally kill a person that they've mistaken for me with their bare hands were probably not good kids. We gotta find a way to smooth this over before— oh Christ, they are literally burning that lady at the stake! So it turns out that a contingent of the people in this town believe that it wasn't me that killed my father. They believe it was a steppe folklore demon called the Shabnakadir. I'm probably butchering that pronunciation, but I've been away from home for a long time. But what you need to know is that it's a demon that takes the form of a woman, except for that it has legs that are bone-like and made of clay. I think it's time that we try to talk to the powers that be and get this sorted before anyone else gets barbecued on my behalf. There are 3, arguably 4 major powers in this town. The Canes, who are the architects of literally everything, and they're trying to play God based on some stairs I've seen in that big polyhedron looming over the town. There's the Sabravs, who are only really in charge in a superficial manner as they're the local government. According to Bad Grief, we're just planning on throwing me in jail to have that be the end of it. And then there's the Canes, who own the abattoir, the only industry in town. They control all the money and most of the things. I consider Bad Grief to be the unofficial 4th power in the town, as he's got a pretty good handle on the criminal element and effectively controls the warehouse district. The warehouses are great and all, but he can't do much for me in the rest of the town. It looks like our choices might have been made for us though, as Vlad Olgimsky sent a messenger to summon us. We go to Big Vlad's house and he says a lot of weird, flowery stuff about how great he is, and we just nod along and eventually accept his offer to make all of this go away in exchange for loyalty. Whatever that's gonna mean later. I don't care. I'm not a big fan of Big Vlad, but we gotta do something to get this literal angry mob off of our backs. That's not gonna immediately solve the problem though, so let's make contact with our old friends. There's Ruben, our father's surrogate apprentice in our absence, who is very much mad at us for ever leaving the town in the first place, and he can't even bother to be home when we come to check up on him. There's just some guy here from the city, and he's kind of an asshole. I hope we don't have to see him again. That leaves us with going to the far north of the town to meet Laura Ravel. Laura's not a major power like the Canes or the Argimskis, but she does have a lot of soft power in the northern boroughs. Lucky for us, we've acquired a coin called a fingernail to trade with the worm people for a boat ride that lets us avoid a ton of potential encounters and get straight to her house. Don't worry about the whole concept of worm people right now, it's perfectly normal around here, we'll explain it more later. One conversation to catch us up with Laura, and she agrees that yeah, accusing you of murdering your own father the second you stepped off the train is nuts, and she'll put word out for people to chill. But first she insists that we get some sleep since we look like we're about to drop dead. Sounds like a good idea to me. And it looks like the weird prophetic dreams aren't just a train ride thing. In our dreams, we're met with the reflections of the 3 people we killed in self-defense, who seem to be okay with the whole getting murdered thing, and we're even given the opportunity to try and relive the events of getting off the train. Our do-over within a do-over goes about the same as it did the first time around, and those dudes are still dead. I hope that isn't prophetic or anything. I'm woken up from my dreams though, as Laura says someone has broken into the house. If anyone's gonna ransack this place, it's gonna be me. I mean, who the hell would rob Laura? She's great. She runs this place as a shelter. I head upstairs and check it out to see a weird child going through some of the cupboards and tell her to get lost. When she's gone, I go through Laura's cupboards, and not only do I find some food and trinkets, but this sick knife I can use on anyone who still wants to start something. Laura was true to her word, and the northern half of the town is no longer attack on sight for me. I take the time to check out the area where I'm safe and maybe pawn off some of these trinkets I found. I also can't really show you this, but a woman from the kin, the local culture of the steppe, tells me that I need to feed the earth human blood, because doing so will stimulate the twire to grow, and I need all the herbs I can find. Those are very important for medicinal tinctures, which we're gonna need in the future. I can't show you any of this because she couldn't be bothered with literally anything before heading out today, and YouTube frowns upon that level of dress. That was a little weird, but good to know that I can do that if I ever get short on twire. I swing by the local theater as it's getting dark, and God director Mark Immortal is here. He tells me he's going to start putting on some pretty avant-garde performances, which I promise to show up to, if only to prevent those poor souls from having to do more guerrilla theater. As things get dark, it turns out that Big Vlad was true to his word, and as the whole town has suddenly decided they don't want to kill me for murder anymore. Well, almost the whole town. The day's about to officially end, and I've made it without anyone jumping me or losing anything important. I know that this was a big one compared to the coming days, but that's mainly because a lot of story is front-loaded in these first few days, particularly day 1, to which my knowledge is the only day you are expected to follow all possible leads. Things are going to get hectic over the next 2 days before we get into full nightmare mode. The clock rolls over to midnight and we successfully survived our first day. We're notified of a new pantomime in the community theater, and watching those are important. Not only do they give us hints about what's to come and what's currently happening on a greater scale, but they also allow us to access the dead item shop. What's the dead item shop? Well, you remember that other guy on the train with us? His business is finding things off the dead and trading them with others. He's got a fixation on dead things, so to speak, like used bandages, broken ampules of morphine, and so on. We gotta see the play first before we hit the dead shop, so let's check it out. The play is less of a play and more of a casting call. We're being casted as ourselves. The director turns the spotlight on us and explains our role and the importance of not dying. He really stresses that we should not die at all costs, because it will be very, very bad. He's got a point too. Remember that every death in this game not only comes with a penalty, but is permanent on our save file, going back every single save. In my experience, one death will make you much more susceptible to the next, and after a certain point you hit critical mass and it's all downhill from there. This ain't our first rodeo though. We know how to do combat in this game, and there's a very good chance this run might be deathless. I died within 5 minutes of seeing this play because I got cocky, picked a fight, and suddenly had 3 guys on me instead of just the one. Welcome to Pathologic 2. Thankfully I saved shortly before the end of day 1, so I only had to do a little bit of retreading, and this time around I remember that you do not pick fights in this game. It doesn't matter how well armed you are, combat is strictly reactive in Pathologic 2, because just because you see one guy doesn't mean there isn't another guy whose patrol pattern is going to intersect with you midway through the fight, and then another and another. This is exactly how I died. I head back to the dead shop and, oh hey, there's this guy lying here that's full of organs. I'm just gonna borrow these and oops, I tripped over a rock on a bridge and accidentally pawned them to Var. Eat your heart out, RimWorld players. This unlocked an important memory about the game that I really wish I would have had a little while ago. Thank you, brain. Some people like to consider Pathologic games immersive sims, and personally I consider them like honorary ones, in the same way I consider VTMB an ImSim, because there is so much kitchen sink design that basically everything you can do is accounted for. Pathologic 2 functions in the way that literally any combination of important characters can and will die, including, if you're really bad, literally everyone, but you can keep playing and get to some sort of ending. Pathologic 2 does have a little bit of emergent gameplay though, in the loosest of senses. Despite being more of a survival sim, the old school MMO tank and spank is the king of combat. That's right, if you want to kill dudes in this game, you gotta group up with the locals and let them soak up the abuse for you while you get behind the baddies and hit them a few times. You can kill basically any number of thugs this way, and you can do it with your bare fist so you don't wear down your weapons and surgical implements. Ideally, this is done by joining an in-progress fight between the townspeople and the thugs, but if you're caught off guard, you can always kite the baddies over to the nearest townie or neighborhood watchman, and they'll tank it like a pro. This is also a great way to raise your reputation in the boroughs, because every thug you kill at night gives you a little bump in your standing, and every reputation-altering action in this game gets a significant boost if a local witnesses it. Just be sure to loot people fast, as the town people will also loot downed enemies too. After a bit of old-fashioned violence in town, I pawn off the organs of all these ne'er-do-wells at Var's and then stumble into the Broken Heart pub covered in the blood of at least 4 dudes. The locals, mainly the Statmaton brothers, tell me about how ever since the news of my father's murder got out, the local thugs, not under Bad Grief's control, have adopted the mentality of, if I get away with murder, they should be able to get away with it as well. I assure him I have already tended to the situation and have begun the exploitation of a new, renewable resource which will supercharge this town's economy. Invest in violence now. The barkeep also tells me that he's always looking for more twire, a family of herbs that grow around the town in the steppe and can be used to either brew tinctures or twire wine, which is the local drink of choice. He will pay good money for certain kinds of twire depending on the day. That's good to know, but we also need these herbs later and should only sell our surplus in an emergency or if we really want to buy something. By the way, there's a dude near the Broken Heart will sell us a a gun for cheap. We need that money, but we can't just pawn off all our twire because, again, we're gonna need that in a couple of days. The organ market's a little tapped out now as the sun rises and the ruffians disappear to the cracks to wait out the day. But there is another way to get a lot of cash fast. Child-powered capitalism. That's right, it's time to barter. The town's local culture puts the act of trading between two parties on a pedestal, and while it's not nearly as fast as butchering thugs at night, it's a real good way to get rich. Step 1 is to scour every garbage bin and unattended drawer for empty bottles and whatever other crap you can find, like you're trying to solve a murder in a communist fanfiction. You'll eventually find enough nuts, trinkets, and marbles to barter with the children. The children of this town fancy themselves a society apart from the adults, and they seem to have their own economy. This economy also seems to value a whole ampule of morphine at about 2 handfuls of walnuts. Where are the children getting this morphine? They have more than the actual pharmacies in town. How is this happening? The children and the other people milling about an area I call Capitalism Alley have all sorts of stuff that you can trade with them for. That's not only stuff that helps you survive, like food, but also stuff you can go sell to traditional stores. I trade up, I get a crapload of cash, and then through various acts of ethically adjacent capitalism, we pawn off enough stuff at the sketchy shop to afford the gun. But first we have a few other things to attend to before we can make that transaction. We learned that our father's service is going to be today, and before we can see to that, we should probably at least try to make some sort of amends with Ruben since he was out yesterday. He's actually at this house this time around, and Laura is there trying to talk some sense into him. He's not having any of it though, and even though we didn't do the deed ourselves, he still thinks it's our fault that our father's dead and we're just the hugest piece of shit in the world for leaving in the first place. Well, excuse us for going off to learn surgery, which our father specifically sent us out to go do, and then having a war break out, making it very hard to get back. Ruben's so far up his own ass that not only can neither Laura or myself talk some sense into him, but the big web of objectives that you get in-game just straight up says, Ruben is an idiot. Fine. We'll just avoid each other for a while. I gotta go put my dad in the ground. While we're walking to the cemetery, it's a good time to explain a rule of Pathologic 2 that I see a lot of people break when they stream or otherwise try to play it. Walk. Do not run. At the moment, there are 5 resources we are juggling every time we go outside. Our health, exhaustion, hunger, stamina, and thirst, which the latter 2 share a bar. Every time you hit the shift key, you can run for as long as your stamina meter will go, but then as it refills, it will also begin to fill up red as thirst. I think it also makes you burn through hunger and exhaustion faster too. Resources in this game are extremely limited. Water especially, since the local river is essentially poisoned thanks to the Abattoir's runoff. I don't know if you've noticed, but nothing bad has really happened in the town yet, and we are already scrambling through dumpsters to find food. You need water not only for your own survival, but also for making curative tinctures. Every bottle you find is precious. Every drop of clean water you can get is very rare and very important. Additionally, the same stamina you use when you run is the stamina that you use for fighting, and if you're constantly running around and you have a high thirst and a spent stamina meter, you are as good as dead if a bad guy so much as looks at you. Oh, perfect. We're here. Our father, Artemy Burakh, was a Menku, a spiritual leader of the kin. Among other things, that means he has the right to perform surgery and butchering in a society where breaking the skin of just about anything is big taboo. The kin revered our father despite him living inside of the town and have turned out in force for his service. There's just one problem though. The earth itself is refusing to accept him. Like literally his body cannot be buried. A member of the kin who lives on the fringes of town named Aspity tells us that our father cannot be put to rest until someone has taken on his burdens. We have the option to cremate our father if we don't want to do that, but accept, and soon enough the earth accepts Artemy Burakh's body. We choose not to look at him under the burial sheet. He's already dead. We've accepted our father's burdens, but Aspity tells us that we haven't came into his legacy yet. Okay, fine, whatever then. I guess for now we get his burdens but not his privileges. At the end of the service, Aspity takes me to her shelter in the crude sprawl and hands me a few of my father's belongings, constituting his legacy. A bit of money, 1 of each major twire herb, and a list containing 8 names. 7 are local children, and 1 is a symbol I can't decipher. I learn I am bound to protect these children, and that in the next 10 days a great calamity will unfold. I think I'm gonna need more twire for this. I take the time to walk the step, collecting all the herbs I come across. It's easy enough to do once I practice listening for them, or more than looking for them. Each herb will make a sound and the rare ones make a unique noise. I need to collect as much of this stuff as possible while things are still relatively calm. I happen upon an old kin village as I follow the trail. It's deserted, and also there's blood coming up from the earth. I know things are a little odd here, but I don't think that's supposed to be happening. I head back to the town and follow a lead on my map that says that the children are using an empty house as a secondary location whenever they're not at the big polyhedron. Inside, two girls who are figureheads for the Child Society are in a heated discussion about who gets to be the magical girl. I'm not exactly sure what's up here. Maybe they're playing Sailor Moon and can't agree on who gets to be Usagi and who has to be Rei, but whatever's going on, they're very upset that I'm here, and the weird kid comes back and threatens to curse me. Weird kid says she has mystical powers, and the only thing I get off her is big warrior cat's energy. Again, I try to visit my father's house to see that a new crowd is gathered around it, but for different reasons. The house itself seems to be sick. Houses aren't supposed to get sick. I still can't get inside because I need a written pass from the Canes, the architects of this city. I really don't have time for that though, as calamities are coming. While wandering the town, some kids ask me to help them dig a grave for their doll, and it gets a little weird. Is this something to do with the 8th? You know, I'm sick of this day and everyone dumping their weird, ominous warnings on me. I'm gonna sell some of that newly acquired stuff I found in the sketchy shop in the warehouse district and go buy my gun. This is actually my first playthrough of Pathologic 2 where I've bothered to buy any sort of firearm, as I'm usually going in all on melee to avoid the upkeep on firearms and scrounging for bullets. The gun's not in the best condition, but it is the earliest and cheapest that you can get any sort of firearm in this game. The revolver's pretty cool. The draw animation makes it feel heavy, and the way Artemy carefully loads each bullet like it's not Call of Duty makes it feel like it's gonna be serious time whenever this thing comes out. Let's see how the criminal element of this town likes us now. Holy shit, this thing is awful! Did they install the sights on this thing with super glue? That was point blank! I could have bought like 10 more cows from that one lady the other day for the price of this crap. Hey, where is the cow I bought anyway? So I think word got out that I wasted all the money I could have spent on food and staberific lockpicks on a stupid, useless gun got out. Because as the date rolls over to day 3, I have a rough night. I get jumped a couple times, and one of the bastards almost adds a second death to my counter. Insult to injury is that once I finally subdue him at the cost of the durability of all my stabby things and most of my stamina, the little shit runs off and I have no hope of catching him since my stamina's wrecked from 2 different fights. It seems that Aspity wants to talk again, so I head over to her house and see that all manner of kin live here. There's another tragedy in 2, saying that they're Aspity's reflection. The reflection tells me that Aspity survived an outbreak of a plague that my father dealt with, and it changed her. How did my father deal with the plague? Well, he saw how bad things were getting in the crude sprawl and ordered that the district be completely sealed off. It was a massacre inside, but effectively prevented the sickness from happening to the rest of the town. Back to the real Aspity though. Aspity's running this house for the last of the kin. The way that the kin tell it, they're essentially dying out as the town grows. This is exacerbated by how they want essentially nothing to do with the town itself, to the point that they're considering some pretty drastic measures to stay alive. I guess it makes sense now that the old village is abandoned. There aren't enough kin to manage that much space. Aspity's trying to keep the traditions of the kin alive, but while she is respected among them, she isn't a Menku and therefore cannot be their leader. She tells us what the reflection already did, and goes on to explain that while a Menku's outward job is to cut, their spiritual job is to master the lines, a spiritual thread that connects all things. She tells us that our father tried very hard to connect things, perhaps too hard, but that's in the past now, and we've got to pick up where he left off, minding the lines. We did assume his burdens after all. We're dead tired though, so we're gonna crash on one of these cots she got here. Oh boy, dreams are getting weird. I find myself on the steps surrounded by 7 children that I was charged with protecting, who are all standing before a door. The children tell me that beyond the door is the 8th, the mysterious symbol on our list. We don't know who or what the 8th is, but we know that it's in danger. We try to go back to sleep after that, but then we get another dream of the Arab wives dancing. Apparently I'm married to one. After a 3rd attempt at getting some sleep, it finally sticks, and I make it through the night without any more interruptions. Shortly after leaving Aspity's shelter, a member of the kin approaches me and gives me a key. He says it's to my father's secret hideout that everyone but me knows about, where he practiced step medicine. I select the dialogue about how it's a pretty crappy secret, but whatever. I've got a cool new hideout to do stuff from, and it also sets up my trifecta of safe houses I'm going to be using during this playthrough. I'll explain this as we walk over there. There are many places where you can sleep, Save your game and generally not be under any sort of immediate threat while you're there. Sometimes you can get away with just one if you know you're going to be active in a certain part of town a lot, but it's better to pick several of them so that when things do get bad, you are never more than a district away from a place where you can sleep, save, and have a catch of resources to either directly recover with or barter for things that you can use to recover. My 3 hideaways are my father's workshop, Big Vlad's manor, and Laura Ravel's house, which conveniently are all in central locations for the northern, central, and southern thirds of the town. They all have storage areas where I can keep stuff and are near enough to ferrymen that I can get anywhere I need to be fast in an emergency. Laura and Big Vlad's houses technically aren't safe storage areas, but I've never had anything I've put in the cupboard in Laura's study or in the drawer by the door to Big Vlad's manor disappear on me. This is especially important to figure out and set up because day 3 is the running start for Big Boy Pathologic 2. Every time you plan on leaving a safe area, you need to carefully plot out on the map which route you're going to go to get to where you need to be, what are the alternate routes in case there is something dangerous on the way, and how much of your resources is it going to take to get there and back, or at least to there and the next nearest safe spot. And more importantly, is this an acceptable price in exchange for what you're going to accomplish? Plot threads will live and die by if you have enough hunger and exhaustion to spare to leg it over to where things happen, and if your health is in a good enough place to risk potentially getting in a fight on the way. We haven't even gotten to the more intense part of the game, but food, water, and health restoring supplies are already more scarce than your typical survival horror hardcore mode, and the difference between making it to day 12 and getting filtered by day 4 is learning to think in expended resources, which includes the cost of how much water you're going to need to drink after a combat encounter to restore your stamina, how much food you'll need to eat to restore your hunger after a trip across town, and, as we'll soon find out, if our immune system is up to the task of walking through an infected district. Now let's check out this hideout my father left me. The hideout is some pretty sweet digs. It's got a means to make herbal tinctures, an operating table, and there's even a water source here for a few bottles every day. Oh hey, it's that kid, Sticky. Hiya, Sticky. Sticky says that the tincture brewing station will be good to go with a little tweaking, but if we want to make more advanced stuff with the alembic, we're gonna need to find ourselves a toolkit and repair it. Sticky says he's working on a solution for that, but for now we gotta set up here. The weird doll I remember from my childhood comes to life and tells me about the Menku's knowledge. We learn how to make tinctures, we learn the lines within the human body, and we learn how we can treat the nerves, blood, or the bones of a person to abate disease, and more importantly, learn how to diagnose which layer of the body the sickness is hiding in so we can manage pain and treat patients. We're reliving this outbreak and know what's coming, so I loot the supply cabinet for anything useful and then make a shitload of tinctures. Shortly after getting loaded up on potions and other such healing things, a runner finds me and tells me that I'm needed at the Soul and a Half Fortress. One of theirs is gotten really sick. I head over there lickety-split and Aspidy's waiting for me at the door. She says I won't be able to save the kid and that I'm not ready to be a Menku, and I tell her to either help or go kick rocks. I get in there and sure enough one of the kids is in a pretty bad way. Lucky for me, the children are not only good at procuring morphine but also antibiotics. I harness child-powered capitalism to get the medicine I need and then carefully treat the little scamp. He looks like he's gonna be okay. Aspidy's just being a Debbie Downer. Feeling pretty good about my success, I head back to see that the kin are gathered outside of my not-so-secret workshop, and now I'm respected among them. Others are here too, and I guess we're just gonna pretend that you guys didn't want to lynch me for murder a couple days ago. I got some business in town though, so after keeping up appearances, I head out. Along the way, I find that people are up in arms outside of Big Vlad's manor because he suddenly shut down the abattoir, and worse yet, sealed off the termitary where a third of the town lives. Something about warding off a potential strike. That's not good, but I gotta get to the far side of the town and see the Canes about getting access to my dad's house, and then that guy from the city wanted to talk about something. The Canes are the exact kind of esoteric fuddy-duddies you'd expect from a family of architects that want to create a superhuman through interior design, and the doctor from the capital isn't even at the place he said he'd be. I head out to go meet him at the town hall and... Oh no. Oh no! It begins! The bells of emergency are ringing across the whole town. This is bad, like bad. This is a situation so severe that it's one of the only times in game where all other objectives are suspended, and you have to attend to this right now. The tragedians are even kind enough to direct me to the town hall from wherever I was on the map in their own unnerving way. I am convinced these guys aren't real. They don't show up anywhere, they aren't even like in the plays, and no one else but me acknowledges them. And they know too much. I can't think about any of this right now though, because the sound of the bells awakens every rat in the steppe to swarm the town. It's time to see what's the matter. Everyone important is in the meeting area of the town hall. The Kanes, Big Vlad Olgimsky, the Sabarovs, and all the doctors in the town, being that guy from the capital, Ruben, and the weird kid that showed up before, and she says she's a doctor, so that makes 4, if only to make the situation less dire. An outbreak of an especially nasty infection in the southeastern boroughs of the town is happening. Probably whatever that poor kid had I saw earlier. What's worse is that no one can seem to agree on what we do about it. The doctor from the capital is interested in making a vaccine, but that only helps with outbreaks after this one. Ruben is just pissed off at me as usual, and the weird kid thinks she has some sort of cosmic plan to wish this all away. Was that like a plot of one of your Warrior Cats books or something? Big Vlad wants nothing more but assurances of loyalty, so I write him off. However, his son, Vlad the Younger, is a bit of a dumbass, but actually interested in identifying the root cause of whatever this is. At least someone is trying to be helpful. I just wish it could have been someone better than Vlad the Younger. In the face of this outbreak, the Canes are on their usual bullshit and insist I go and check on the Statmatin brothers because they're super special architects they brought into the town from afar, which makes them very important to their super special urban planning mysticism. Fine, I have to go there anyway because I, for one, am actually going to go out and try and help people, and in order to do that, I gotta head back to my workshop and make even more tinctures. I stop by the Broken Heart before heading into the heat, and Notkin, the child leader of the Soul and Halves of all people, is there. Hey, are you allowed to be in here, kid? He tells me that on the fringes of the steppe in the crude sprawl, there's a house that death itself supposedly lives in, and he's gonna go check it out tonight. I warn him against it, but I've already written this off as something I'm gonna have to deal with tonight. I step out of the Broken Heart, and some guy's claiming to be one of Dr. Dankovsky's volunteers, and he's dressed up in one of the old costumes from the theater. He hands me a full set of protective gear and tells me that this half of the town is totally infected. Each one of these items will help you resist infection in a different way, such as gloves helping to negate some of the immunity damage you take when you open a drawer touched by infection, and boots helping to reduce the drain on your immunity every second you're outside in an infected district. Let's give these babies a whirl. Yep, this is bad. Hey, remember how I said running was only for emergencies? Being in one of these hell zones is an emergency. It's time to talk about the 6th stat you need to maintain, your immunity. Immunity is exactly what you think it is. How much more can you resist of the sickness ravaging the town before you yourself get infected? Infection is bad not only because it is a point of no return, save for an actual miracle in which you are now on a countdown to your death, but also the people who are tasked with guarding infected districts will attack you with firebombs, as it is their job to keep the infection contained. Remember, you don't respond with refresh stats when you die. You take a death debuff, and then you get sent back to your last save, which is probably one where you're still infected. So now you're back to where you were when things were already bad, but now you've got an additional debuff. Remember a while ago how I said that death creates a slippery slope to the next one? The plague is actively against you from the start. Never mind the delirious people wrapped in rags that want to embrace you and get you sick, the plague itself has clouds of evil that will take a huge chunk of your immunity with you if you come into contact with them. Some of these evil clouds patrol infected districts. Some guard natural choke points in the town, such as entryways, and others are just little bastards that try to jump you as soon as you enter a district by being an infection missile that shoots out into a clean area from the infected zone when you're about to enter. The plague is going to try and sucker punch you every chance it gets, be it from clouds of infection or suddenly bursting out of people you're treating at the hospital or in the tainted water. How do you prevent this infection? Tinctures. These potions we've been brewing aren't just for diagnosing which layer of the body the sickness resides in, but also gives us a good boost to our immunity at the cost of taking a penalty to another stat. That is, unless we find the more rare strains of Twire, and then not only do the tinctures give us a big boost to our immunity, but also increase a stat instead of penalizing it. There are also immunity boosting pills you can find or buy around town which give you a token boost at a little cost. Finally, your immunity will naturally recover slowly whenever you aren't in an actively infected zone. But while that can help you conserve immunity boosting items by just letting it slowly come back up on the way to other tasks and then only using what you need to top it off before going into the heat, natural immunity recovery isn't nearly fast enough to be relied on. We run like hell over to the houses the Statmatins are staying in and check up on them and also do a little prophylaxis, basically treating them even though they're not sick yet to prevent them from getting sick. More on that later on. Of course, one of them wants us to run over and check on this circus performer chick he's got a thing with, and I guess I'm in town and I need to attend to all the sick I can find. Anna Angel's about as weird as I expected, but who isn't weird in this town? We give her medicine and run the hell out of the district before our immunity gets any worse. It's getting late and I gotta go make sure that Notkin doesn't go do anything stupid. I get a marker on my map saying that the kitten gather at Aspidy's house, so I check it out since I gotta be next door anyway. Sure enough, a few of the worm people are hanging out in an unfinished basement and they give me a bunch of organs. Nice! I know exactly what I can do with these. I get into the House of Death just in time to catch those little twerps, but it's no good, as it seems we have a bigger problem now. Someone barred the door. Worse yet, this house is crawling with infection. Notkin says the old stories say that if we light 8 candles, we can effectively banish death, so I scour the house looking for anything flammable. I'll admit that the big infection penalty I took here required me to burn through my matches to disperse infection clouds, and my tinctures to prevent me from getting sick are entirely of my own fault. I forgot that lighting candles means finding props placed around the house to interact with, and I spent a lot of time desperately looting every container looking for the in-game tradable item that is a candle to collect. If there is one consistent issue I find with Pathologic 2 on top of the back-breaking difficulty, it's that there are a lot of times where the game does a poor job of explaining things. With Death Vanquished, I've saved the crude sprawl from being infected tomorrow, and as a plus, I have the ability to steal everything that isn't bolted down from this house. Every tradable resource is gonna count. I debate whether or not I want to make multiple trips back to the house once I've dropped off my loot, but I need rest more than I need stuff right about now. We gotta play to see. Before we get into day 4, let's give a big hello and welcome to all the people who clicked on the timestamp to skip to this part because they tried to play Pathologic 2 on their own but got filtered. It's okay guys, it's not just you. The game's tough as nails. Tonight's play is especially rough, but anything to take my mind off the fact that Death is now playing dice with everyone I care about. Starting now, every night there's going to be a roll on every person infected or in an infected district. Prophylaxis is important for all of our vital characters, as the higher their immunity is, the better their odds of not getting infected when they're in danger. If any of your bound lose that roll though while in an infected district, they catch the plague. Then it comes a battle to be treating the sickness as best you can to keep their infection meter low, because now Death will roll on them every night regardless of the state of their district, and if they lose this roll, they are dead. On top of not being alive anymore, a vital NPC being dead means that whatever they could help you with now becomes inaccessible. On my previous run of this game, I didn't even know about rescuing infants because the person tied to doing that task rolled very poorly, got infected on day 4, and died on day 5, which is the soon as anyone can die from the plague in this game. Death's game isn't the only way people can get sick or die though. Sometimes things just happen, or more often don't happen in time, and someone will get sick or just die outright from outside causes. Unfortunately, this is the case for poor Notkin. Saving the crude sprawl from being infected as a whole last night came at the cost of Notkin automatically getting infected. We're gonna have to tend to him as soon as we get the chance. For now though, after a little prowling of the streets to cool off, we crash on Laura Ravel's couch and wait for the chaos to begin. The town has erected a hospital, and by that I mean they cleared out some seating in the town theater and turned it into a makeshift isolation ward. It's here that I'll be given my tasks from the town government each day in fighting this plague. Today's task is something I am thoroughly prepared for thanks to the power of bartering. I just need to treat the infected in the hospital for their pain. Just symptomatic stuff. Thanks to trading with all the people milling about town in Capitalism Row, I have a crapload of morphine, and I get this task done within the hour. Completing the task of a day means that you'll get rewarded from the town fund. The fund's rewards will vary depending on how much you are able to get done on top of your daily task. Stuff like treating the sick or, heaven forbid, curing someone will increase your meter, while day-to-day things like the reputation you have in the town will determine where it starts at. You think I was running around killing thugs at night for exercise? I was doing it for the reputation boost to amp up my early fund rewards. And also, you loot them for stuff you usually can't find on normal trades like lockpicks. If you want to get maximum fund rewards without running out of tinctures and medicine to treat the plague, you're gonna have to kill at least a few dozen people. We gotta head down to the Soul and a Half Fortress to treat Notkin, and that means crossing a lot of districts. Each district will have its own state of infection each day, and while you can look it up, there are in-game methods of knowing before you go. I did neither of those things though, so I'm just chancing it as I barrel down to the southernmost portion of the town to the warehouse district to give Notkin his medicine. I correctly diagnose and treat Notkin, and while he is infected, his infection status is really low. I think he's gonna be okay. I've got other business to attend to. Sticky's a good kid, and by a good kid, I mean he's hatched a plot to get the stuff we need to fix the Alembic with only a minimal amount of crime involved, or at least crime that I'm involved in. The plan is that I'm gonna go into the tailor shop and distract the storekeep while Sticky immersive sims through the ventilation system to snag the parts we need. Unfortunately, I have the riz of someone who gets all their opinions from podcasts and can't hold a conversation with the shopkeep. Funny thing though is after reviewing my footage, I did do this segment right. I don't know what happened here as I had enough room in my inventory to accept the toolkit, and Sticky did give me the conversation where he successfully steals it. It didn't drop on the ground as if there wasn't enough space in my inventory, and I didn't see it anywhere next to him. I just never got the reward. Okay, actually I did, but I didn't realize that it's not next to Sticky, but instead on this random bag that spawns on the hideout's operating table that looks like nothing that you loot previously in this game. This game really has a problem with signposting. I can't believe I'm saying this, but some yellow paint would be nice right about now. Look, I can't dwell on this because we have other things to take care of. For instance, some dudes are robbing my dad's house right now. Some guy runs up to me and tells me that there are looters running through the neighborhood, and screw the Cane's rules. If they get to go into my father's house, I'm getting into my father's house too. Right off the bat, there's one guy watching the door who I blow a hole through after a couple tries. Man, this gun sucks. I get inside and sure enough, there's one other guy in there that I gotta immediately deal with. Once he's down, I start working my way through the house because if anyone's gonna steal all my dead father's stuff, it's gonna be me. Then, things take a turn for the sour as another guy is in here, and while I'm holding him off fine, another thug literally teleports behind me, and I just barely manage to scramble out of the house alive. Whatever, I got all the good stuff. I guess this is as good a time as any to explain burned zones. If a borough of a town gets infected, it'll only stay that way for a single day. After the infection runs its course, it won't immediately go back to normal, but instead become burned. Basically, it's not a risk to your immunity anymore, but a risk to your health, as the guys who wandered the streets during the infection have decided that now they're gonna act like the dudes who wander the street at night, and they're just gonna loot everything and attack people on sight like the pale thugs do. It can legitimately be more dangerous to go through a burn district than an infected one, or even multiple infected districts, and there will be many times where you have to weigh the options of if you've got enough immunity to cross through the infected district, or do you have enough health and stamina to risk going through a burn district and just end up getting straight up killed instead of infected. There are no right answers, only pain in how you manage it. So as we narrowly escape the burn zones thanks to a conveniently placed ferryman, we make it to Laura's for some rest. I'm feeling pretty good about tonight's death roll because the only person who's sick is Notkin, who we made sure had a really low infection level, and god damn it, the plague took Notkin! What the shit, Step Pest? Why couldn't it have been like Big Vlad or one of the Canes? Fuck you! It's gonna be a long night. The play is doing nothing for my mood right about now, and when I leave I can hear a baby crying. Rescuing babies is something that you can do in addition to your daily task, which can net you a big chunk of change and a massive boost to your reputation. I tracked down where one of the little guys has been hidden, but I was forced to expend my only lockpick in self-defense when a looter snuck up on me inside of the house. I hope somebody can find the little guy. I slink off to the town hall to get my meager reward, and then off to the dead item shop to stock up on the medicine that the fund won't give me. I'm already settling into a routine for this outbreak. I see the plague, I hit up the fund in the dead item shop, violence, sleep, wake up as soon as my daily task is available. The sooner I get these things done during the day, the more time I have to pursue more thoughts on the map that will lead to a more meaningful solution to this outbreak. I get lucky today, as the daily task in the hospital is essentially just treat people with antibiotics, meaning that not only can I get it done in a flash, but also the task fills up my fundometer as treating patients is something that I need to do anyway. I'm essentially free for the day as soon as I leave the hospital. You might think it a little self-serving to do the bare minimum you need to get to full reward before dipping, but this is a long game here. I need every dose of tincture and antibiotic I can get, and I can't spare a single one more than I need if I want to make it to the end and have a more permanent solution. Speaking of tinctures, since today I was able to get everything I needed done so fast, I decided this would be a great opportunity to make sure I'm ready for the coming days by going out to the deltas of the Gorkhorn River and collecting all the herbs I can find. Sure, it's a bit harder to do during the day when I need to listen for Twire instead of looking for the little firefly lights to see them, but I've got time and we need these herbs. It's oddly peaceful being away from the town right now. The nagging sensation that I need to get back in there and help everyone I can never leaves my mind. But the rational part of me knows I can't help them unless I take the time to gather everything I need and steel myself for the coming days. Being out in the steppe is also great for letting my immunity naturally recover too. I head back to my hideout to do some brewing, and an herb wife greets me inside. The one claiming to be my wife. I thought this was some sort of scam at first, but she's been real persistent about this, and Artemy does seem to remember things about her, even if they're not specific. Our wife seems a little more than dejected as she's insisting she's not going to follow me around anymore. She promises she'll be back when the time is right, and I have no idea what that means. Ah shit, did I forget our anniversary? Also, my cow is gone. Am I losing custody of the cow? Man, I gotta get some rest. Okay, more weird dreams. This time we're all in a classroom and Laura is teaching. Dr. Dankovsky is in the naughty corner, as he should be for many things, but I'm curious as to why in particular our friend from the capital was banished to there. Based on the weird kid asking about the homework, this has something to do with the rules of life, and it would seem that Dr. Dankovsky is trying to reject them. Makes sense considering word on the street is he belongs to an organization of doctors that are trying to cure death itself. After waking up, I walk to the cemetery and collect more twire to clear my head. I've got some ceremonial duties to attend to later in the evening. Earlier in the day, I caught wind that the kin are riding a bull around town. They say they need a butcher to help restore order. When I asked them if that meant the plague, they got a little evasive, but were still insistent that I am indeed a Menku now, and therefore I am the one who must follow the lines to butcher the bull. It wasn't happening until later in the evening though, so I went out and collected all those herbs. Flashing back to the evening in the cemetery, the bull is laying on the altar like you would for following the lines. The sound of the twire fills the air as I perform the rite. Not only do I get 2 portions of beef, the single most satiating food item in the game, but I also learned something from one of the worms after the fact. When pressed about if they're concerned about getting sick, he says that the plague doesn't affect them because the worms are of the earth. He gives me a vial of the bull's blood, and I'm reminded that cattle don't seem to be affected by the plague either, at least last time I checked on my bull. Where is my bull? Thinking back to the other day, Vlad the Younger was in an old abandoned house digging the earth with a few of the wormkin. One of the worms there said something similar too, that they're made of the earth and therefore things that don't hurt the earth don't hurt them. However, Vlad the Younger pointed out to me that the kin with him were increasingly averse to digging, like the deeper he went down into the earth. This is all very interesting, but I think we're missing a few pieces of the puzzle. The vial of cow's blood says I should take it to Dr. Dankovsky for analysis. It's really late though, so we're gonna do that tomorrow. It's time for a cooking segment. Since we just acquired 2 steaks in game, we're gonna cook up a pair of steaks IRL to celebrate. A quick note before we get going, some of you might remember that during Indieween my GoPro died, and after looking at how much it would cost for a new one, I considered what I could buy instead of that GoPro, and I've decided I'm gonna hold off on replacing it. The bad news is that means there's gonna be no more first-person shots to zoom in on exactly what I'm doing, but the good news is that I can now wear silly hats during the cooking segment since I don't have a GoPro strapped to my head. In order to be lore accurate, we're going to cook up some healthy looking ribeye steaks, as both the wiki and my own eyes can confirm that cut of meat you get in game is a ribeye. They look a little on the leaner side, but we're just going to say that Big Vlad probably gets the stuff with better marbling. Prepping the steaks themselves is fairly straightforward and conveniently gives us just enough time to prep the everything else. We're going to take the steaks out of their package, liberally salt on one side, and then place them salted side down on a paper towel lined cutting board. Now we're going to salt the upright side and then rub a little bit more salt on like the flanks, as these are hefty boys. Then cover it with cling wrap and leave it in the fridge for at least an hour so that the salt can do salt things. Now would be a great time to get that everything else done. Let's start by setting our oven to 400 degrees of freedom heat units, and while that's coming up, wash and cut some ventilation holes into a pair of potatoes before wrapping them in foil. It'd also be prudent to cut off a couple of pats of butter for these taters now instead of when they're coming out of the oven, so that the butter melts quickly into the potatoes and therefore more efficiently. Also, grab another stick of butter out of the fridge to soften up too. We're gonna need that one for the steaks. Let's wash off and slice some green onion for the potatoes, shred a block of mild cheddar because it's always tastier and more cost effective to get a block, and go into our garden and cut off some big hunks of rosemary to flavor the meat with. It's okay if you don't have a garden and just need to get it from the store. Just make sure that no matter what, you wash it before you cook with it. Toss them taters into the oven and set a timer for 90 minutes before we get one last thing prepped. The garlic. What you're gonna do is take the whole bulb of garlic, put one hand over it, and then smack it with the other hand, which is not only going to separate the cloves, but partially peel the outer layer. Now we carefully smash and peel at least a half a dozen cloves of garlic and set that aside. We don't need to press this because it's not going directly on or in the steak. It's just going to be a flavoring agent. Showtime! Take the steaks out of the fridge and then liberally grind pepper over both large sides and set your burner to medium, I repeat medium, and let the pan heat up. I know I've got the cast iron right here, but I decided to opt for my ceramic saucepan instead because the cast iron weighs a lot compared to ceramic, and we're going to be working this pan quite a bit. Melt the butter in the pan and add in the crushed garlic and rosemary. Then, once everything is sizzling, in go the steaks. Now what we're going to do here is never bring the heat a little more than above medium, and we're going to be turning these steaks every minute. Between turns, we're going to get a serving spoon and use it to scoop up the buttery liquid in the pan and pour it over the top of the steaks. Right now you might be asking, Charles, why are you only cooking on medium heat? Aren't you supposed to get the pan as hot as it can to get a good sear on the steak? And yes, that technique is good for some cuts of meat, such as thinner cuts like a New York strip steak or those no-name cuts of steak you get on discount at the store. Ribeyes, however, are very thick. I mean, look at one of these things compared to a stick of butter. If we were to try and sear that like a New York strip, we'd end up with a steak that's completely uncooked in the middle, while the crust is burnt beyond being able to chew on. The medium heat also has the benefit of not burning the garlic, giving us the extra time to watch over the meat as it cooks. Flipping every minute is also good for seeing how the crust is coming along, and while it won't look like very much at first, you'll be able to get a lovely crust on your steaks after a while. Just patiently keep flipping them every minute. Since all the stuff for the potato is already done, we can also just keep basting away at our steaks because we have nothing else to do, which is also going to get easier as more excess moisture is released, but don't worry, they'll be plenty juicy. After about 5 minutes or so is when we're going to want to start temping our meat. This instant read thermometer I've got here is a little on the fancy side, but you can easily get a perfectly good one from the big box store for between 10 to 20 bucks. Now I've got this great little reference here, which is not only an easy way to keep track of levels of doneness in a steak, but there's also a couple things we need to keep in mind while we're cooking. For one, measure in multiple places, as most steaks aren't a perfectly uniform thickness, and if you've got crappy electric burners like I do, the heat is not going to be very well distributed across your pan. We want the middlemost part of the steaks to be our main temp, but we also don't want to accidentally fry a thinner part of the steak. Second is we're not shooting for exactly the level of doneness we want for our steaks while they're still in the pan. There's some funny science stuff about the diffusion and distribution of heat that I'm going to skip over and just summarize as your steak is going to continue to rise in temperature about 10 to 15 degrees in the 5 minutes you take it off the stove. And you gotta let it rest so you can account for that when you're cooking. Okay, everything is now off the heat. Now, just like I was talking about, if we put our thermometer in the steaks that have now been off the heat for at least a minute, you can see that they are still rising in temperature ever so slowly. Good thing we took them off well before they hit the level of doneness we wanted. Go ahead and pretend I cooked my potatoes enough in this clip and dress yours accordingly with cheese, butter, sour cream, and those green onions we chopped up earlier. Throw some steamable veggies into the microwave and while the meat is resting, and if you're the kind of guy that does it, use a bit of the cheese you got for the potato to top your broccoli. By the time you've done all these things, the steaks will be good, rested, and ready to eat. And look at that, they are right on the money. I was shooting for a good medium to medium rare-ish, and not only did I get close enough to that, but basting made these steaks melt in my mouth and cut perfectly with my knife. You know, this probably isn't too accurate for Pathologic 2, as the way we cook this steak makes it close to how much calories the Haruspex probably consumes in the entire 11 game days, but whatever. I'm hesitant to even mention this, but the full recipe for this is available for patrons at the $5 tier or higher on patreon.com/charlatanwonder with a standalone video, and I'm only hesitant because, like, this is simple. You could probably just do this by eyeballing the main video. Let's get back to the plague though. The clock rolls around to midnight and I am getting lucky with these death rolls. Giving myself a day to collect herbs and brew tinctures came at the cost of not having time to treat all of the sick and at risk, and I really should not be neglecting that. However, my gamble pays off, and now on top of everyone being alive, I'm loaded up. The kids at the Soul and a Half Fortress are saddened that Notkin got, but they're carrying on his plans to try and help me by mapping out the infection levels of every district in town every day. This can be bought for the day as soon as midnight rolls around, and it's a barterable item instead of a cash purchase, meaning that you can easily use stuff you find to purchase it instead of precious cash. This changes my routine a little because now it's get the map, see the play, grab my reward and hit up the dead shop, and sleep until the hospital open. Maybe do a little murder between those as a treat. I take that having a little treat too far though, as I do a little too much murder and eventually a swarm of bad guys is on me, and that's officially death number 2. The director decides that I have a choice between the use of my hands and the ability to hug, so I take losing the ability to hug. Believe it or not, this is a thing that can affect your endgame later. Oh, and while you guys can't hear it, since I can't use the game audio, if there was a sound of a crying baby you were trying to rescue in your game as you die, it stays through the whole game and death sequence until you load the save. We live again and decide everything the same except more murder. We make sure to kill the guys that were gonna kill us. By the time the sun rises, we have killed more guys tonight than any other day so far. In the middle of our rampage, we happen to get close enough to the sound of a baby crying that we narrow it down to a single house. It turns out I'm not the only one in here, and I have a close call when one of the looters tries to get the jump on me. This time, though, I remember to conserve my lockpicks, and then I can get into the baby's room and Anna Angel, the circus performer? Anna, who has a phobia of touch, has gained access to where the infant is, but she can't quite bring herself to grab the little guy. When I ask her, it seems that she heard anyone who rescues an infant and brings it to the town hall will have all of their sins absolved. Geez, I was just gonna do it for the sake of saving the little guys and, well, the money. I'm not sure this town can forgive my sins I've accrued in the last 5 days. I assure Anna that I'll make sure the Sabrovs know that she was instrumental in saving this child, and she hands the baby over to me. My inventory is full though, so it's placed on the ground in a little satchel, and after a bit of item moving later, we have successfully added a human infant to our inventory. We slip off to the town hall and hand the little guy over. Being true to our word, we make sure the Sabrovs know that Anna was the one that found and secured her. The cash reward isn't all that great, but the massive boost to the reputation of all the boroughs is nice. Between my generous fund ward and the infant rescue bonus, we're loaded right about now, and we can buy out a couple pharmacies in order to get the stuff the fund won't give us yet. We're in a pretty good place between the extra tinctures we got yesterday and the fund rewards. Now, we just have to survive the next 5 days. Things are getting bad out there. I nearly bited a couple times going from town hall to the hospital to do my task and then off to the bachelor to give him that blood. Speaking of that dandy from the capital, today he has assigned us to reappropriate the organs of plague victims in the isolation ward so that they can be studied. Hey, wait, we were supposed to be studying these organs? Oh well. I guess Var doesn't want these smelly infected organs anyway. I get back to Eva Jan's house where she's in danger too, so I give her one of the spicy tinctures before handing over the bull's blood to the bachelor. I spend the rest of the day carefully creeping around the map looking for repair tools because I keep finding bullets and I need to make this gun work. I've invested too much in it. Repairing items in Pathologic 2 is very much like real life, where repairing something and keeping it in good condition, it takes a lot less effort than trying to get it back to working order from broken, and a lot less parts too. I get enough springs and other odd things to fully repair my revolver and head back to my hideout. I talk to Murky, one of the kids I've been bound to protect who hangs out outside of my workshop. She lives on her own in a boxcar somewhere, and I guess this is slightly nicer than that. Apparently she and Sticky had a fight though, and now she's real bummed out. As she tells it, my father made everything and everyone bad, and it's driving a wedge between them. Were playground disputes always this complicated? We gotta get these kids Game Boys or something. I've got bigger problems though. I'm already running low on tinctures from yesterday, so after repairing my gun to full durability, I head out to scrounge for more bottles and do some more tradings to get to means to make more. My bound are in trouble again near the termitary. Along the way, I learned that the weird kid has been taken in by the Sabrovs and wants me to pay special attention to them as they're her new parents. I hear through the grapevine that they've also caught my father's murderer. Again! I was told they caught a guy earlier in the week, but it seemed real fishy and a little too good to be true, and my instincts proves right there. I'll give this one a look though, as Katerina Sabrova is one of my bound and she is in danger. Unsurprisingly, this latest killer they've got is almost a waste of time. Almost. But he does give me an interesting morsel. Apparently, the reason this guy was hauled in was because he overheard a conversation with my father and someone else, and my father said that he knew he was going to die in a matter of hours. That's weird, but everything about this week has been weird. I don't know how I'll follow this lead, but it is something. Since I'm at the Sabrovs, I head over to Katerina Sabrova since the weird kid wanted me to check up on them and they're my bound and they're in danger. Katerina is, well, she's never been very well to begin with. Rumors are that the botched ban on morphine in town a while back was specifically to try and help her kick the habit, and even putting aside that, she's troubled. Katerina's having a fit of some kind, claiming that some kind of entity is visiting her. I give her some medicine and reassure her that there are no monsters under the— What is that? What the fuck is that? How do I kill it? It needs to die. Katerina isn't as insane as we thought. An entity known as the Rat Prophet has been appearing before her, and now it's appearing before me for some reason. The Rat Prophet claims that Katerina calls to her, and that not only is the plague of the earth, but the earth itself is alive. Given what we've learned from Vlad the Younger and the worms earlier, this is a hell of a development. The extra spicy bit is that after confirming this, the Rat Prophet tells us that all living things resist death. That statement's got implications. As the Rat Prophet disappears, I take a big hit to my immunity and find myself in a pretty bad spot overall. I gotta get the hell out of this district. Wait, Murky? What are you doing here? It's not safe. Murky tells me that her imaginary friend has been wondering why I've been asking around. I have no idea what she's going on about. Murky's been wanting me to meet her imaginary friend, and I've promised to oblige her because she's been having an especially rough time of it lately with her and Sticky being on the outs. Murky's asked me to come meet her friend at the old Crowstones. It's a weird place way out of town, but kids love weird places way out of town, especially when there's rocks and stuff to climb on. The Crowstones are deafening with the sound of twire, and the step looks ominous in the dusk light. Murky insists that her friend will be here soon, but she also insists that I've been a pretty shit surrogate dad, and, well, she's right. I've been stretched so thin trying to fight this outbreak that I haven't nearly been making enough time for her, Sticky, or any of the bound on my father's list. Murky says that her friend is coming and I need to hide behind the rocks for him to come. I humor her and— Weird Kid? Come on, don't tell me you've been teasing the poor girl too. Okay, Weird Kid is acting weird even for her. Something about wanting to give me a gift, but there's something in my gut that tells me I absolutely do not want anything they have to offer me. I creep along the edges of the rocks to play along with Murky and meet her friend and— Okay, Weird Kid again, how did you get around here so fast? Where's Murky? Who the hell was I just talking to? What? You sons of bitches, you can't do that! This is a farce! The Weird Kid tells me that while I was distracted behind the rock, Murky's friend did show up, and that said friend was the physical embodiment of this plague. Allegedly, Murky ran off with it to distract the plague from me, but that doesn't make me feel any better about the situation. I slink off to my workshop and don't even look at Sticky as I organize my things and get ready for the next day. I'm sure he'll figure out what happened. There's some time to spare, so I close my eyes for a bit. Murky comes to me in a dream. She tells me that all this happened so that she could tell me things about the plague, and while I'm not having that excuse, I listen. Murky explains that the plague is very closely connected to the earth, and that this isn't a freak accident. The plague was very intentionally unleashed on us. She also tells us that the plague can't get everyone, and it also doesn't like that we're trying to stop it, so it isn't omnipotent and maybe even afraid of me. I can work with that. Finally, she pleads with us to keep a closer eye on those we're bound to. I leave Murky's great boxcar in the sky and wonder how I can do that with so much at stake and barely being able to keep myself alive at this rate. There's rumors that the Inquisition will arrive tomorrow morning, but it's not like this situation could get any worse, so why not? I've also got this fully repaired gun now, and a lot of big feelings I need to express after failing my bound. Let's see how this baby shoots now. I am respected in this community. I go down to the town hall and collect my fund rewards. The fund is loaded today. The fund can effectively carry your run so long as you bother to do the task and some basic doctor work every day. Heck, just participating in the nightly tank and spank against the bandits is usually enough to keep your reputation high enough to where your fund reward meter will be almost maxed out at the start of the day. Like, look at it here on the map just after midnight when it officially resets. I'm already past the normal reward and I literally haven't done anything yet. I displaced the guts of 2 petty criminals on the way to the fund and I'm almost at the generous reward. I haven't even done the daily task at the hospital yet. Murder is a clear path to helping this town get through the plague, and my gun will light the way. I settle into my usual routine, stumbling into Laura Ravel's shelter with a thin spray coating of whoever crossed my path on my apron as I crash on the couch. The dreams are getting worse. The Inquisitor is officially here and everyone is officially a suspect. The Inquisition is hailed as some sort of cabal of geniuses who can solve any problem. Solving any problem sure involves a whole lot of hanging people based on a series of arbitrary questions, but I guess when all you have is a hammer, everything starts looking like a nail. As soon as I leave Laura Ravel's shelter, one of the Inquisitor's goons rushes me and demands I come to the old cathedral for questioning right this instant. I don't think this guy realizes who he's talking to. On my way to the hospital to start my daily task, I stop into a grocery store to get something for lunch later in the day. I met with a shopkeeper named Hardhead who refuses to take my big pile of coins I have. She says that now all food may only be purchased with inquisitorial coupons, which seems to be a countermeasure against food hoarding and price gouging. Yeah, it'll stop normal shops from doing all that, but the Inquisition has no power in the factory or in the warehouse district. The hospital is a shit show today. Ruben's missing, and in his absence, the volunteers are dumping bodies willy-nilly, which has led to the still living being thrown out among the dead. Well, at least it's an easy daily task. I quite literally sort the living from the dead and head on over to the cathedral. It's like a morgue over here, with everyone terrified of this Inquisitor. Agalia Lich. The only person who seems to be in good spirits is the director, but we've already established that he has fourth wall privileges. Aglaia herself has certainly got an intimidating setup here, but her questioning leaves something to be desired, as the sheer wall of exhaustion I gotta climb just to acknowledge her takes the scare out of any of her words. Like, come on, the actual fucking trolley problem? I trolley problemed 2 dudes on the way to Laura's last night alone. This shit is for rich kids in grad school who grew up in gated communities and LARP as Marxist on campus. I don't know how much of this town you saw before you set up shop in this big pretty cathedral, but we don't have time for this. I was literally pulling living patients out of a corpse pile half an hour ago. How about you inquisit up some fucking antibiotics for me? The Inquisitor finally starts asking meaningful questions about the disease and a cure for it, and unfortunately, I don't have good answers for her. Aside from Schmouters, an insane concoction made by the children during the last outbreak of this plague, which is literally a bunch of random pills crushed together into a snuff box, I've got leads, but no answers. Turns out she's got some answers for me though. Ruben wasn't at the hospital this morning because he's dead. His last act on this earth was to make a sample of the panacea to prove my theories. I just need to find a way to produce this thing now. After a day of trying to make things work and get to the bottom of where I can find the blood I need to make this panacea, I get a tip from Capella, one of the girls vying to be the next Sailor Moon or whatever, and Big Vlad's estranged daughter, that Grace, the cemetery keeper, is in great danger. I haul ass over to the cemetery as I don't want to lose anyone else on my bound and find Grace in the mausoleum. Grace is a special kid. She can hear the voices of the dead and even offered to let us listen in on our father's conversations, but we declined as listening to the dead also hurts her quite a bit. The trickle of deaths that are a part of normal life aren't a problem for her. The daily avalanche of bodies the cemetery is getting every day since this plague started, that's killing her. Quite literally. Grace is deafened by the lamentations of the dead and we have to do something about it. Oh well, would you look who it is. I don't know what he did or how he did it, but we make an agreement with the Rat Prophet to get rid of all the dead around the cemetery, and he does it in an instant. I don't know what this is or what it's gonna cost me in the long run, but what matters is that Grace is okay for now. We pick up some fresh twire around the graves as the sun goes down and head to the workshop to end our day. Tonight's play is especially ominous. The town is lined up single file to be sentenced to death by Aglaia, who isn't exactly making a show of her deliberations. I try not to think about how whatever part of this town survives the outbreak is now at the mercy of this clown. There is a silver lining to the Inquisitor's coupon system. For one, places like the Dead Item Shop and Bad Grief will just sell me coupons no problem. You know, I don't think making them out of candy wrappers was a very good idea to avoid counterfeiting. The other is that the fund will still give me a crapload of cash every day, and since I can't spend it on food anymore, and the fund is finally giving me medicine, I can use this money to get fitted to the gills. I have a full set of high-tier clothing, and all the repair parts I need to keep my gear and gun in top form. This is a huge boon on these later days when the plague clouds in the infected district are especially aggressive. The bonus reduction you get to immunity damage can really add up once you're fully geared. Oh yeah, and the gun. The gun seems to solve more problems than my doctor's kit these days. After my usual routine of taking out my frustrations on anyone who happens to look at me the wrong way after a certain hour and then stumbling over to Laura's, I crash for the night so I can be ready for the hospital task the following morning. Man, Laura's gotta have some sort of thing for Artemy pretty bad with the amount of stuff she puts up with from him. Tonight's dreams are a little too on the nose. It's just me, Dr. Dankovsky, and the weird kid all fussing about how we're going to stop this thing, but no one seems to really be doing anything. I wake up and make my way to the hospital. Today's task is a deceptively simple one. Survive. Literally just hang out in the hospital for an hour and then I'm good to go. The second the other guys leave, a swarm of plague clouds enter the hospital, and if you aren't careful, you can easily go from full immunity to infected in seconds. Luckily, plague clouds have the same detection rules as people, meaning that if you just stand around a corner and hold C to be all sneaky, they can't get you. Kinda BS, but kinda clutch too. So long as you know how to be sneaky, this is the easiest, least resource-intensive task you do during the whole run. I go over to Aglaya's new office, and she's on her usual bullshit, talking big game but never helping with real problems. What's actually interesting is that Bad Grief has officially thrown in with the Inquisition and renounced his life of crime. He even gives me the passphrase to disband his gang as proof. I head back to the old hideout and find that a new gang has already set up shop, and even though I don't get a reputation bonus from removing these guys, I do get a whole lot of lucrative trading goods and plenty of organs. By the end of the day, I break my record for most kills again, and I guess that got Death a little too excited, as he ends up massacring half of my bound. If you're wondering why you're not seeing any of this, I forgot to record it. I was playing a pretty long session that day and saw that it was time to pick up Dr. Charlatan from work since we still haven't gotten a second car yet, so I paused the game in my recording software since Pathologic 2 doesn't so much as close as it does crash. When I got back, I unpaused the game, but I forgot to unpause OBS. I've got no one to blame but myself for this one. Sorry this day's so short, I'm just missing half of it on the recording side. The bloodshed at Bad Grief's old hideout ends up being a little too much for me, and I can't make it all the way to Laura's. I stagger back to my hideout and I'm forced to sleep through most of the night instead of going to the pantomime. Lucky for me, it seems the pantomime goes until 6 a.m. and I just end up making it. It's especially macabre tonight. A model of the town is surrounded on all sides by cannons that dwarf it, while an actor portraying Commander Alexander Burakh soliloquies about the nature of protecting people from danger. Just as the pantomime is reaching its climax, the real Alexander Burakh shows up with his very real train car-sized artillery that look like they can vaporize buildings. I scramble to the town hall to see how this is going to pan out. I grab my reward from the fund first, which is enormous today. Based on how much the fund is giving me, I wonder if I'm the only one of the people tasked with doing anything to help in any way with this outbreak that's actually helping at all. I get a literal day's worth of food and change, a bunch of those coupons on top of that, plus enough cash to buy out several stores worth of goods. I literally have more money than I know what to do with right now. The fund has been instrumental in making sure that I don't keel over from anything other than getting stabbed, and I should really work on not getting stabbed. It's a shame that my streak of generous rewards is about to end because the military is in charge now. I speak with Alexander Burakh, and it's like the conversation I had with the Inquisitor, except the person that's talking to me has their shit together. He's straight to the point about the state of the infection, what options we have to cure it, and what to do going forward. Part of this means going down to the hospital and proving it can be cured. It turns out the weird kid has been running around telling people that she can cure the plague with just a touch, and it oh so conveniently happens to be that the power just stopped working after she yapped about it to the commander. Shit, weird kid, we don't need this right now. I don't even have a schmouder or enough tradable stuff to get a schmouder. Unfortunately, even if you max out the fundometer for a day through whatever you're doing that day, if you do not complete the task at the hospital, you get nothing. Oh, and of course the Inquisitor wants her daily attention. Bad Grief's officially a member of the Inquisition, as he tells it, and he's rather pleased that I just tied up a whole bunch of loose ends for him last night. He gives me the shotgun. I just so happen to pick up some ammo for it, so I do a bit of inventory management and equip the thing. Feels powerful just to hold it. Oh yeah, Aglia wanted to talk to me. Aglia, I don't care, just Inquisitor. The Inquisitor explains the score to me. Her job is to quote-unquote solve the outbreak. The military's job is to level the town to stop the infection from spreading beyond the steppe. Her job is technically completed if Burakh does his, but that comes with the catch that all of us will die. Luckily, I've got a break. Foreman Ayun of the abattoir was out in the steppe when they closed the tormentary, and yesterday he came back. Better yet, he sent for me to talk about the plague, and if anyone knows how to get the weird blood, it's him. When we last spoke, he said he'd get the tormentary opened for me so that I could learn the truth about the plague and the nature of the earth. And he already sent for someone to summon me again, signifying that it's opened now. So I am done explaining things to you, Inquisitor. I've got an outbreak to solve. Time is running out, literally. The narrator straight up tells you that time is moving faster, and that's not poetic language. The game's time does indeed speed up as you get closer to day 12. That's why you gotta hoard Twire during the early days, because chasing key objectives is going to be the only thing you have time for once we get into the double digits. There's no time to collect herbs, brew potions, or even get more water on later days, because the world is crashing down around you and decides that you aren't doing a very good job at managing this outbreak, so it's gonna speed things up to just get it over with. I make my way towards the steppe and get a chance to try out my new shotgun. It vaporizes 2 thugs in 3 seconds. I thought I'd be excited for this game changer, but I don't even feel anything as I watch the stopping power of the shotgun delete all the momentum the thugs had charging at me with their little knives and makes them crumple up into a sad little pile. I don't even know why I loot them for valuables. There's no time to trade, and even if there was, there's no one to trade with, as there's almost no one left. I've got bigger issues though. It's pretty late as I get close to the steppe, and the day rolls over as I'm doing a bit of inventory management in the hideout to get ready for my meeting with Oyun. The death roll is surprisingly decent for another day's worth of neglecting my bound in order to get a solution for the whole town. Sure, a couple people got infected, but all of the infected except for that mathematician whose plotline I couldn't be bothered to follow survive. I needed this. It's the lucky break that just might help me make it in time to Foreman Oyun and get this mess solved before Commander Burakh decides this town would be a better parking lot. Hey, wait a minute. What is one of the volunteers doing in my hideout? Murky's friend? Oh, fuck! The plague itself is here to talk shit. It's decided it's done playing like a good DM and wants to play like one of those bad DMs that thinks that they win if the party wipes. All of the bound children from my father's list are now infected. Not even a roll, just straight up infected. And that means, oh no, Sticky is sick. I lost Murky, and I'm not losing you, kid. The foreman can wait. We're gonna go watch a shitty little play. We're gonna go pawn off all these broken bottles of morphine and fish hooks I've been hoarding for a rainy day, and we're getting you cured. The dead shop only has 1 schmouter tonight, so it looks like it's just Sticky getting cured, but that's better than nothing at all. I'll have more cures in just a bit. Everyone just hang tight, please. Now that Sticky's safe, it's time to see the foreman. I make the long walk out to the old village, collecting the herbs I go out of sheer habit. I honestly can't even remember the last time I treated someone for the plague. The last few days have just been running from one place to another, leaving a trail of bodies behind me, but in my defense, some of them weren't my own fault. I meet the foreman in the village and he says that it's time for me to enter the tormentary. He doesn't even bother to go with me. He just tells me that he'll be waiting for me on the outside. Welcome to the tormentary. This is where deathless runs go to die. Luckily, I got careless a couple times already, so I don't have that kind of tension on me. This is also where the few who didn't get filtered by the first 3 days of this game often find themselves giving up. The tormentary stands in stark contrast to the rest of the game, because combat is unavoidable here. Not going to the tormentary isn't really an option if you want to finish this game properly. Part of the reason why I've been doing so much high-impact neighborhood watch duty in town during the nights is because you need to be practiced up for this part of the game. While the game will temporarily relieve you of your possessions, at least for the first time around, it also relieves you of any debuffs you had from previous deaths, and oh boy, you're gonna need that. You really need to get this done on your first try. Of all the places to die in a Pathologic 2 run, this one is by far the worst. Since there is no avoiding combat, nor finding an alternative route, once you're in, if you choke on try 1, it's gonna get harder and more likely to choke on rounds 2, 3, and so on until you've gotten all the possible death debuffs. If that wasn't enough to convince you, a trip through the Steam forums searching the term tormentary shows that this is indeed the final filter of Pathologic 2. Maybe even the direct reason why Icepick Lodge decided to add that customizable difficulty system after launch. You either get past this or you are not seeing the end of the game on your own save. We're greeted by a worm who explains to us that this is their place, where the last springs of the Earth's living blood reside. This is the blood we need, and they don't want to give it to us. This worm is the only friendly face we're gonna see for a minute now, and that doesn't stop me from having a little sip here. A rookie mistake since we came in at full health, but this helps me get a feel for the stakes. It's at this time that I have to look at my actions over the last week and admit something to myself. I'm not a good doctor, but I am very good at violence. The plague itself comes alive to whisper something to me, but I can't hear it over the sound of the blood. The first worm doesn't even get a hit in on me as I claim the fingernail and a bottle to take the earth and blood for myself. The plague being of the earth, the worms being of the earth, and now the damning evidence that the plague itself is literally here and being guarded by the worms isn't looking good. But then I come into another chamber where the herb brides dance. They're dancing as if to cultivate the twire, except instead of the herbs, the clouds of the plague spring up around them. You know, now that I think of it, I've never seen an herb wife get sick. I round the corner and see a bunch of them surrounding the one said to be my herb wife on the altar like that bowl. You're gonna have to take my word on all this because the gameplay footage in question would get me in trouble here on YouTube. But they explained that yes, they dance to cultivate the plague. To fulfill my destiny, I must now follow the lines on this herb bride. I do my job and take my due. A spindle in place of one of her organs. I go through the next 3 worms on my way to the heart of this place. If the kin have been killing all these people that I was supposed to protect, I guess I can at least try to level things out and even the score. Eventually I claim enough blood and odd prizes from the kin to make it to the final chamber where a single worm greets me. I noticed that a few of them were watching from other chambers, and perhaps they've gotten the idea that they're not going to be able to take me down. Instead, they want to see if I know how to tie things together, if I know the lines and how to connect them. I combine the fingernail, the spindle, and a candle I got off another worm and end up making my own heart. Funny, I didn't know I still had one. My heart tells me that the plague is indeed made from the kin, that it's a thing of the earth, made when the earth lashes out in pain, and the earth is in pain because the town is severing itself from it. So, the answer to the people leaving was to just kill them all? And now you beg me to return to the kin as if I didn't watch everyone I cared about get sick and die? I think you've got another thing coming. Turns out the only way to get out of this termitary is through the big hole where I made my heart, so I jump in. As I walk the oddly fleshy chambers, I come across it, the town's heart. The Urdar wasn't a person, it was literally the town itself. The earth is really alive, and based on that big ass spike pointed at its heart, it's very much in danger. Turns out the big old spike is most likely the base of the polyhedron all the kids have been hanging out in lately. I wasn't able to get inside it, but I surmise that if I can get this spike out of the town's body, that'd cause all the blood from the earth to come up to the surface, and that'd be enough blood to make generations worth of panacea. I find a way out, and what do you know? I'm in Vlad the Younger's project house. The foreman is here and explains a few things which at this point feel redundant, but at least I can hear them out loud. The plague only targets people, and the kin are considered beasts. My father also intentionally spread and cultivated this plague this time around, as he believed it was important for the town in some twisted way, to perhaps make the kin human, or convince human to turn kin. Oyun says I need to take control of the kin, as animals need a herder, but the whole idea that this plague was started through my father and propagated by the kin just doesn't sit right with me. How on your sacred living earth does killing over 10,000 innocents make for evolution? How does purging the humanity of this town make it any meaningful sense if humanity will still exist? What's stopping the earth from just deciding that this needs to happen elsewhere, like the next town over, or the capital, or the whole world? I accepted my father's burdens and obligations out of your tradition, but I do not accept the solution to the kin's troubles being to kill everyone who doesn't follow their ways. Get out of my way. I have a panacea and a prototype. Of course the Inquisitor is sending for me about now, and I may as well tell her that yes, I do have a recipe for the cure, and I have found more materials for it than we could ever possibly need. We just need to find a way to get it out of the ground. I guess there is some prowess to back up that position that the Inquisitor's earned, because the guy has figured out the same thing that I have with a bit of help from that dandy from the capital, and has even figured out how we remove the polyhedron from the earth. It just so happens that Commander Burakh has brought a bunch of guns that are capable of vaporizing a building, and even if that building defies all other laws of physics, it still breaks and explodes when shot with car-sized artillery. A guy is gonna work on talking up the commander, but he's gonna want to see proof that the panacea is real. I gotta get all these blood samples to my hideout and... Oh fuck! I never fixed the alembic! I barrel out of the cathedral and start sprinting towards the nearest tailor shop. I don't care about conserving stamina anymore. If I don't get this working, there isn't gonna be a reason to sprint soon. I get too careless though, and in the process of flatlining two thugs I don't have time to deal with right now, I feel the kitchen knife of a third between my shoulder blades and go down. I guess I was the one that got tagged and spanked, and there's never a time to get sloppy. I don't get any sort of immediate penalty as the director isn't even here right now, and someone named the Ratcatcher is saying that something slipped out as I got in. I reload my save, and on the way out of the cathedral I slow down enough to listen to a soldier. Apparently a single day in this hellscape was all they needed to schism and mutiny. That's their problem though. I'm running through boroughs with no regard for if they're safe, infected, or burned, hitting up every clothes shop in the game, and finally I find one. I end up having to pawn off some of my high quality medicine in order to afford it, and while the military gear that slipped into the economy looks nice, I don't have time to think about what I can trade to get better gear. I need to get this thing installed now. On the way back from the tailor shop, I passed by the hospital, and I'm not surprised to see the military have just boarded it up. What does surprise me though is that the Rat Prophet is standing in front of it in corporeal form, like it's no big deal. I talked to him and learned two things. 1, he is capable of breaking the fourth wall, and 2, my most recent death allowed him to come to the material plane. I guess the 10,000 other people who died just wasn't quite enough for that. Existing is his problem though, because I've got to get this toolkit to my hideout. We'll talk about this later. I jam this toolkit in and a couple springs into the alembic, and it seems to be working now. I grab a couple vials of my earth blood and start brewing them into panacea before collapsing onto my cot in my hideout. My dreams take me back to the termitary. Things that look like the Tumbler human are living now in the place of worms. They're voiceless until I give them names, and when I do, they tell me the plague is the earth's anguish. Yeah, I knew that already. What really sends me for a loop is that my father is in the place of the worm that taught me how to make my heart. He admits to intentionally unleashing the plague, and that it was a sort of penance for running away from the plague 5 years ago. He tells me that in his life, he, the Canes, and the mistresses, the mystic woman who the girls were playing Sailor Moon to decide who gets to succeed, were all using their powers in tandem to hold two things together against their nature. Isidore and Simon Canes found and started the initial propagation of this stint of the plague, as it was the only way to set the town back on the path it was supposed to follow. He died before this could be seen through, but that was according to plan. He wants us to decide between the old world and the new. Even if this is just a dream, this is nuts. How is this a choice? I just let the earth massacre everyone that doesn't want to play along with their ancient mysticism and it'll just be all okay? Where's the promise that letting the kin have their way isn't going to stop them from just doing this again whenever something else upsets them? Screw the earth. I won't be complicit in reducing us all to animals, even if it means I get to be leader of the herd. Sure, I've done my fair share of things that are dubious at best and just outright monstrous, but this is insane. Fuck your ways and fuck you. I wake up and I know exactly what I have to do. I grab my infection map, watch the stupid play, and grab whatever I can from the dead item shop to get ready. I make my way over to the cathedral, unsummoned this time. I need to figure out if Aglia was able to get through to the Commander Block. Along the way, I talk to some of Block's soldiers, and the way they tell it, they are now openly shooting at each other in the back whenever they can, and nobody knows who's on whose side anymore. Do whatever you want. I've got to get to that cathedral. I enter the cathedral and Aglia isn't there. Bad Grief is still hanging around though, and he gets me up to speed. Aglia did indeed pen the orders to explain to Block that shooting the polyhedron will end this plague on the spot. And just to be sure that it gets to him, she sent 3 couriers and then left herself to have the orders delivered. Smart move, Aglia. Let's see if it pays off. I bolt over to the town hall where I don't see any city officials, just soldiers. After talking to the soldiers, I learned 2 things. The first thing is that they haven't gotten the orders. Commander Block isn't here right now, and his location is unknown, or at least I, as a townsperson, am not allowed to know it. Supposedly, he got infected evacuating all children 16 and under from the town, including in the polyhedron. Aglia and the couriers went off to his most likely locations, which I am allowed to know about. The second thing I learned is that Laura's dead. She tried to make an attempt on Commander Block's life, leaving a note exonerating us, but not making her any less dead. I remember something about Laura's dad being essentially sentenced to death by Block, and despite all her compassion, I guess she never let that go. Maybe if I was there, I would have been able to talk her down. Hell, I can't even remember the last time I talked to Laura. 5, 6 days ago? Laura Ravo was my last friend in this world, and I've been a real shit friend this last week. I wasn't even able to get her that barrel for her shelter or find the time to talk to her. The military is keeping the fun reward up, and I scarf down whatever food is in there and take the only useful thing among the physical rewards. Enough bullets for a full revolver cylinder. I have to find those orders. I get to the last known locations of the 3 couriers marked on my map and practically knock the door off the hinges in Town Hall on my way out. I somehow knew that Aglaia attempting to go outside was going to be a death sentence for her, but her sense of humor still lives on. The first set of orders for Commander Burakh were sent to Laura's house. I charge into the infected district towards Laura's shelter, stepping over the bodies of soldiers as I break down the door. And would you look who it is? Dr. Dankovsky. What, you think this display is threatening? I killed more people on my way to see a community theater production last night. What are you even doing here? The Bachelor explains to me that he had to intercept the orders because the polyhedron is the cure for death. How did I know that all this Latin was a smokescreen to hide that you were just a quack? I press him about the orders and he explains that he knew that if he tore them up, I put them back together, or if he ate them, I just cut them out of his gut. So he scoured the house for a match and just managed to burn them before I got here. You're insane, Doctor. And the only reason you get to live is because your life is worth far less than the minute it would take for me to claim it. Good day to you. It's a long sprint to the next last known location of a courier, and as I charge down the step to the military outpost, I get a clear view of the guns pivoting into position to annihilate whatever's left of the town. I get to the outpost and the guys there explain that the person I'm looking for got chased to the Crowstone by mutineers. I follow the blood to whoever's left standing, and they tell me that the courier made off towards the factory, but he definitely got hit during the skirmish. I continue to follow the trail of blood to the Broken Heart, and it's a massacre. A group of local thugs claim that they have a guy who knows about the courier. Artemy Burakh, renowned surgeon of the steppe. Funny, they also have one of theirs who got winged in the fight to take over the bar, and they need a surgeon badly. They'll only let me see Artemy if I operate on their friend. Yeah, you guys definitely need a doctor right about now. Shame they sent a butcher. Imposter Burakh looks a little shocked that the grift backfired in such a horrific way and turns out to be useless. That leaves me with one more lead to find a set of orders. On my way out, I'm stopped at the door by the kin, begging me to show them compassion after all they did. I don't think they realize I'm not my father and that I'm only willing to show about as much compassion as they showed Notkin, Murky, and 13,000 other innocent lives they've wasted in their little fit these last 11 days. I sprint across the river to the final location of the 3 couriers, only to find the weird kid among the bodies. She's not good for much except to warn me that the mutineers are closing in on me. I take a def because I forget that you need to run out in one direction to get them to spawn before doubling back and then running the way you actually wanted to go. What's a few more dead thugs and looters though on another try? I elude the mutineers and make my way back to my hideout. Looks like one of the couriers knew that these orders would be safer with me than with them. On the way there, a couple of odd children stop to talk to me. They tell me that the polyhedron was perfect in every way except for one flaw. No one could age while they were inside of it. Maybe Dr. Dankovsky was right about his theories, but I'm not about to let what's left of my life get shelled into oblivion over a grown man believing children's fairy tales. I'm exhausted, I'm low on health, my immunity is shot, and I'm out of water to replenish my stamina. I pawn off my gun and surgical tools at the sketchy shop for a lemon and a fistful of coffee beans just to keep myself from passing out. I sprint to the town hall with the orders, only stopping to suck down water from some intact barrels on the way so I can keep running. I get to the town hall, and after talking my way through some of the lower ranks, I see Commander Burakh is here and perfectly healthy. Turns out the rumors of him contracting the plague, evacuating all the children, were greatly exaggerated. I hand him the orders, and while I'd love to scold the weird kid for trying to convince the commander that she's some kind of saint, I don't have the energy for her warrior cat shit right now. I shamble over to the polyhedron, getting a lovely view of the artillery blasting it out of the skylight on my way to what I need. I let the plague get me right at the end, if only to mock it by chugging down a vial of panacea right as it starts talking. I won't need to conserve the blood after this. I get to the base of the infernal thing and I'm greeted with an ocean of beautiful, life-giving blood. The next thing I know, I'm awake in the train car again with the dead shop guy. He talks a lot of words but says nothing. I say whatever I think he needs to hear to get this over with, and the next thing I know, it's day 12. The town is saved. I have no more immunity meter, no hunger, no thirst, health, or exhaustion. I'm free to see the few people I saved. I started my lap around town. I noticed that I'm seeing more reflections than people. The people here aren't exactly the ones I wanted to talk to anyway. Dr. Dankovsky's hanging out in the Broken Heart, trying to get all chummy with me and use old step words like he wasn't about to let the whole town get shelled for his delusion. I try not to dwell on the fact that if I hadn't pawned my surgical tools, I could have sent him back to the capital as a donation to science. Aspity survived too. I don't know how much that's good for, save for maybe she can help what's left of the kin finally integrate into the town before they all die out. The rest is a blur for me, save for Foreman Oyun trying to scold me for abandoning the kin, and that against all odds, the Kanes, Sabrovs, and Olgimskis survive, save for Capella. I guess another consequence of my failures is that the status quo is preserved in the worst way possible. To no one's surprise, Bad Grief not only survived, but was just grifting the Inquisition, and now that everything's blown over, he conveniently has a warehouse district where all of his enemies have been removed thanks to yours truly. Well, I'm glad I could at least help someone. The only conversation that stays with me is Sticky. Sticky insists I teach him the way of the Manku healing, despite my father proudly teaching him more than I know. He gets genuinely distressed when I half-jokingly say I'll disappear into the merchant navy when he's good and taught, but that gives me pause. I'm no good for this town after all the things I've done, but I've also made this town what it is. I make my way to the theater to speak to Mark Immortel, and he breaks the fourth wall a bit without asking any of the good questions. I spent the last 11 days learning exactly what you have to do to save the future from the past, and now I'm gonna have to spend the rest of my future figuring out how do I reconcile with the things I did to save it. Maybe Sticky will be able to figure it out. For now, that doesn't matter. The skies are clear, the sun is bright, and I'm finally free from this plague. And scene. And so we've made it through Pathologic 2. I'm sure the fans of this game are positively screaming in the comments about all the things I missed, and I think it's time I explain my angle here with this video. After seeing all the takes already out there on Pathologic over the years, I realized that I can't out-explain mechanics and game design better than Mandalore, I can't out-analyze and argue H-Bomber Guy, and I can't out-Sulmatul. I've also been introspective about my video creation process this year and realized that I'm at my best when I'm using a game as a vehicle to tell a story. My normal showcase or analysis videos, or whatever you want to call them, are fine and they keep the channel active, but what I've started to call storytelling videos are me at my best, and when I perform the best. I've got no plans to abandon the former style, as storytelling videos are a lot of work and take a lot of time to make. Pathologic and Pathologic 2 especially are not only figuratively, but sometimes literally framed as stage performances, where the player is quite literally assuming the role of the Haruspex in the same way an actor can assume the role of Macbeth or Petruchia or Batman or James Bond. Interpretation and performance are everything to a story. I've gotten through the game before, and I've decided that I'd try to play a take on the Haruspex where Artemy loses sight of why he's trying to cure the plague on his quest to cure it. This is not nearly the only way to play through Pathologic 2 though, as for every plotline I followed here, there were at least 3 that got neglected. You can actually save most people if you know what you're doing, and even get the cure as early as day 5 I think, but following those lines are going to leave others unconnected to the overarching plot. My best recommendation is that you try it out yourself with a couple caveats. The first caveat is that it is in-universe 100% acceptable to use the wiki as you need it. Remember that the events of Pathologic 2 are a do-over in the most literal sense, and that the events of the game are a performance, and part of that performance is the player deciding if Artemy Burakh is going to be a clairvoyant using his knowledge of the future to do everything right, or slowly unravels into a psychopath. The game's even aware of this, as if it detects reloads, it might warn you about quote-unquote time turning. My second caveat is to be aware that this game is about as clear as a brick wall in both good and bad ways. That means that characters are well written enough to where it's acceptable and even expected that an NPC is capable of obfuscating the truth or outright lying to you, but also that only half the actual mechanics are explained, to the point where things like missing the toolkit you can get as a freebie on day 4 is such a common issue that there are many forum threads dedicated to it. Me forgetting about it did make for some great dramatic tension though. But what if you want more after that? Well, there's always the original in the form of Pathologic Classic HD. Remember the dandy from the Capitol and the weird kid? They're playable characters with their own unique stories in the original game. The first game also has a lot of stuff that just didn't quite make the cut for 2, but be prepared to deal with a game that, while updated to run on modern systems, is still a game that was made with 2005 game design and some especially esoteric stuff at that. Want something more modern? Well, with the purchase of Pathologic 2, you get the Marble Nest, a vertical slice of what would have been the Bachelor's campaign, restricted to a single day. I say that it would have been because, well, the scope of the differences between the Bachelor and the Haruspex has grown a lot. Like, a lot. So much so that Icepick Lodge have officially announced that next year Pathologic 3 is going to be a thing. We don't know too much about it yet, except for that The Bachelor is on a different level than everyone else, and that time is going to be non-linear, with hints that basic survival needs the Haruspex had are so trivial to him that we might not even need to manage them. It's also why I chose to do Pathologic 2 for this video, because with the recent announcement of 3, I didn't have to worry about there being another plot line that I'd have to come back and do later. The Bachelor's problems are supposedly going to be literally beyond Artemy's comprehension, and he's more in search of utopia and his cure for death. And according to some of the dev diaries on Icepick Lodge YouTube channels, it's gonna be wild. And if that's not enough, well, there's always all those little fan animations floating around YouTube and, cargo. Oh boy, that was a monster of a video. As far as video size goes, this just surpassed the second largest video, my Kenshi sequel, in script size by 2 pages, but we did it. Oh god, I've been living off like throat coat tea for the last 6 hours. I want to thank you all for watching, and I want to thank the patrons especially for voting this and making this possible. Really, patronage over at patreon.com/charlatanwonder is what keeps me making cool, unique videos about unique games with unique stories possible. And while it's never necessary, I'd like you all to please consider throwing some support my way, be it on the Patreon with all the benefits, super thanks here on YouTube, or just leaving a like and a comment to make sure this gets all the step wizardry it needs to get on people's front page. Pathologic 2 isn't exactly a game I can recommend for everyone to play, but it's an experience I can recommend to everyone, be it through this video, all the others on YouTube. By the way, codex entry, please, Pathologic 2 for people that won't play it when. I have a feeling it's going to be better than this video, or just watching people try to stream it on Twitch. It's weird that while initially playing through this game for the video, I thought that I would be done for Pathologic 2 for the rest of my life, but writing this makes me want to give it one more go now that the knowledge is fresh in my head and I know what I'm doing. I've been playing around with the idea of starting up streaming again, and I think that this might just be our inaugural game since, well, it's an angle. Link to where that'll go down in the description, and I think we'll start next year. Probably February at the earliest because I got a pretty stacked January. I have myself a whole new set of peripherals I bought to help with starting the streams, and also because my monitors are kind of dying. But I've been just staring at them here because I've made it a rule that I'm not allowed to install them until I get this done and get the last few straggler aprons sent. International postage has been tricky this year, and I thank you all for bearing with me. Over here on YouTube though, thanks to the chaos of this year 2024, the Immersive Sim Roundup will most likely come out in January, which seems to be a good idea as we get more out of nowhere stuff like the Indiana Jones game, and I've also been preventing myself from buying that until I get this put to bed too, so I've got just so much stuff I want to do as soon as this is done. Not that I'm tired of this, just I'm excited for things in the future. There's definitely going to be a video on that too, and more videos on more weird little ImSims I've been keeping in my pocket for now years that I can't wait to show you. There's also going to be a ton of spooky games, and next year's Halloween in July is going to be alien themed. And anything else I can find in the times between those. It's going to be a big year. I want to thank you all one last time for bearing with me this year, because as some of you know, I had another big move, and it's the kind of move involved with taking lots of the next steps in life. I've been spending a lot of time, and I'm finally getting out of the woods and into my backlog. I'll be starting up the vote for what next year's patron voted video is going to be soon, and anyone who's a patron gets a say in what big thing we do next. One last thing before we go. On top of making sure to subscribe to the channel and ring that little bell so YouTube tells you when I do something, I'm also now on Blue Sky, and if you're curious about why I, among many others, have made this move, let me be the first to just give you an honest answer. It's business. An important part of being any kind of creator is not just finding the people that will enjoy what you do, but also having a secondary platform to make sure that people know when you've done something new. Over the last few years, Twitter's gotten really bad with showing people links, or frankly showing people anything from the people that they're following. That's why you see a lot of your favorite creators post an image like the thumbnail of their video first, and then reply to their own post with a link to what you actually want to see. This is nothing against Twitter personally, and this isn't even the first time something like this has happened. Once upon a time, instead of Twitter accounts, everyone had Facebook fan pages, but as Facebook had its own implosion a few years ago, we all moved over to Twitter. I'm not abandoning Twitter per se, but I think you know which of my platforms is getting more energy and all the newest cat pictures, but that's enough for now. Let's sign off. Remember that no matter what you do, be it traditional dances, pantomime, or designing physically impossible buildings, what you do should never be considered content. It is art. Content is a word that in recent years has been twisted into meaning a means of grinding up all your skills, passions, and aspirations into a gray slop that is meant for nothing more than the mindless consumption in the name of making a line go up to someone else's benefit. Your art in no way deserves that. Your art is inalienably a reflection of you through the act of its creation, and in no way do you deserve to be reduced to content. So get out there and fight for yourself by fighting against the contentification of everything, by fighting for art. Stay saucy, everyone.
We got a boy on the premises who is triple boxing. He just keeps on going back and forth between these three. Every time we think, oh, we're gonna throw one out, he starts sitting in the other. He's got his whole box zone. He loves the yogurt box, so it's just the right size. But then sometimes he's sitting on the soda box, sometimes he's sitting on the berry box from Costco. He just wants all three. Dude, your waffles are poking out of the box. You don't care though. You're just vibing. Can I get a scritch? He's kind of okay with it. Hard to be upset when you're triple boxing. That's a sweetie. What? I'm stopping so I can turn off the camera and pet you more.